The and some fantastic presentation coming up from you, Eric, looking at API governance.
Exactly, and actually beyond API governance and how to run an API organization like a business, which is in the continuity of what Matthias just covered. So
I think it's fantastic. Follow on. Great. Do you want to share your slides to see that they're working?
You cannot see them right now?
They're up. So I'll get off the stage and leave you to it. Great to have you here.
All right, thank you very much. All right, so yeah, what I wanted to cover today is a framework for you in API teams to think about you can build a culture and a way of governing your API organization. So it goes beyond the usual exceptions of API governance, and I'm going to use the Lean Startup framework. So we'll see first what about values, which is when you constitute your team, what are the values that gather you and what matters to each of you, how to build a mission around it, build a vision out of it, a business plan, and then a product and an adoption. All this in 20 minutes, so it's going to be pretty fast. All right, let's talk about values. So typically you're already part of an organization, and this organization already has some corporate values. So your values have to be those values. Plus, I would encourage you to think about adding the values of the agile values, which I documented in the Agile Manifesto that I posted here, about working together, focusing on real stuff, and putting collaboration as a paramount. These are important values from the beginning as part of the API team to help you govern your APIs. Then it's about creating a mission or a purpose. The new term for a team today is more of a purpose, but I'm using this older term of mission. So this is a proposition of what could be this mission. So as an API organization, I believe that what you can claim is that you want to transform your company to make it join the platform economy by leveraging the 4 powers of APIs. So 4 powers being to open the company, to open its assets to digital interactions, to be agile in its treatment of IT, thanks to the interface nature of APIs that make it composable. To the fourth power is the third power is the possibility to create self-service for customers, and the fourth power is to make it possible for you to create a platform and service your ecosystem as a platform. So this is a proposition, and I encourage you to think about working on your mission as an API organization. Once you've defined your mission, you need to come up with a vision. Here, I'm going to share a framework that I've experimented with hundreds of companies around the 4 business models of APIs. So the first one being interactions between the company and its clients. So that's basic. That's why APIs, and especially REST APIs, have been so successful since 2007. Now, the second business model of using APIs is to augment this capabilities that you develop internally with third-party APIs. So here I'm taking the example of a bank in the US that would want to augment its the experience that it provides to third parties with, for example, Alchemy for document processing, which allows you to reduce the time of document processing by 99%, or Mental for account opening, or Sensible that allows you to grow transactions by 3 thanks to analysis of your spending. So this is the experience you provide to your end clients, and that can be enriched with APIs, even if the end client doesn't see it. These are things that make your the journey you propose to your clients way better, because it is enriched with best of breed coming from third parties, rather than a clunky IT that cannot deliver those features so quickly. So these are the two first business model. Now let's have a look at beyond this experience. And it's about becoming a marketplace and really becoming a platform. So in this case, what you can do is to monetize and get commissions out of you distributing partners. So for example, if you're a bank, you can distribute QuickBook from Intuit. You can distribute insurance services through Trove API. You can distribute aggregation services through Plaid and make money out of it. And you can also be distributed. So this is the fourth business model of APIs. You can be distributed by a company like Affirm, which is a buy now, pay later company that would be interested to distribute your services as a bank, so that there is actually more engagement on your side if you get third party to distribute your services. So I encourage you to think about this as a model for your vision. I like vision to be visualized and visual. So that's a framework you can reuse and think about. Now, once you have your vision, it is about building a business plan. So to keep it really simple but accurate, a business plan comes with plus and minus. So the plus is the value you monetize. In a broad sense, we'll see later what I mean exactly by value monetize. Then the cost is typically the cost of your organization, as well as the resources to run your APIs, and that's going to give you the profit for your startup. So let's have a look at the value monetized. We've seen just earlier that direct monetization is just one piece of the puzzle. Direct monetization is when people pay for your APIs per usage, so either developers or partners, and that's a minority of the value that's actually being created by APIs. Most of the value is with indirect monetization. Indirect monetization is when the consumer pays, and the payment is bundled in a business process. So in this case, it means that you're going to be able to monetize through revenue attribution to your API startup, thanks to the revenue that was generated by lines of business. So you need to be able to identify the stakeholders, the partners, and client organizations that are receiving that value, so that you can get your accounting to attribute the revenue to you for those indirect monetizations. And same with any cost you would save thanks to APIs. There needs to be a cost accounting to recognize the value that your API startup is actually bringing to your company. And all this is based on good usage reporting and good accounting for allocating the right cost and revenue to you for the right purpose. Now let's have a look into more details. Okay, we said that you need to identify how, as a startup, you're going to monetize from the beginning, and the value drivers are actually in three areas. It is either by augmenting the consumption of services for your company, generating revenue, or augmenting the efficiency, saving costs, or building resilience, which is about mitigating risk. So if we go into details of the first one, for consumption, the value of APIs can be with direct clients or channel partners or through the marketplace, as we saw earlier. So with the direct clients, for example, you need to think about the value that you bring or you will bring for either client acquisition, their adoption rate once they've been identified, their retention that is typically driven by satisfaction. And same with partners in terms of revenue generated through partners by your company. You can actually influence the win rates of partner acquisition, the time to market new channels, and increase the revenue per channel if you boost the extent of a relationship with those channels. On marketplace, as we saw earlier in the vision, it is how much revenue you're generating through commissions or by monetizing your audience with the marketplace. So these are drivers that we typically see in companies that actually help their company transform and generate more revenue. Then let's have a look at the drivers in terms of cost savings. APIs are a great tool to cut costs. With APIs, there is no need for ad hoc integrations anymore. So forget about integrations or point-to-point integration. It is based on the consumption of an existing product. And you can actually drive a lot of efficiency and cost saving by avoiding integrations. Same with APIs themselves. You can actually save some cost by making sure that two geographies are not building the same API for the same purpose. Then the second aspect of cost you can cut that's even outside IT is when the services you provide actually drive efficiency within your company. We had an example of a customer that was able to drive efficiency of their employees by 40% just thanks to their API program. And again, third one is replacing some existing process with automation, which is made possible with APIs. And on this, you actually cut marginal costs dramatically. And this value needs to be recognized as part of your API startup within your company. Finally, on resilience, you can have an impact as an API startup within your company by, for example, being compliant with industry regulation like PSD2 in banking in Europe, or TM Forum for telecommunications, which is not a regulation but a standard, or FHIR, HL7 FHIR when you're in healthcare. By opening your company and making it compliant with standards and regulation, you actually make it possible for your company to still be in business, which is not a small deal and should be valued and recognized as part of the revenue you should recognize for your API program. Same with availability. If you manage to make a service way more available than it was before, thanks to what you've put in place, it needs to be recognized because it means that the service will be more available and more revenue will be generated by your company. And in security, if you manage to increase the velocity for applying patches on breaches, for example, then it needs to be valued as a way for you to make your business more resilient and get the value out of it. If you want more details and examples on this, I already gave us a talk about it called KPIs for APIs as part of API Days with some customer examples. All right, so we talked about the revenue piece. Now let's have a look at the cost piece of your business plan and the team organization that you need to plan for. So a model that we see work well is when you have a team that, let's call it the platform team, some call it the center of excellence, others the center of enablement. I like the enablement piece, and actually I like to put it at the bottom rather than at the top because they are enablers for other teams. And those other teams need to be led by product owners and developers, part of these scrums and teams, and they need to be as close as possible to the business so that the coordination here is not about one team ruling them all. It is about one team supporting all the teams and making sure that there is as much efficiency as possible within each of those teams. So the enablement team would actually maintain a catalog of service. They would maintain the guidelines. They would make sure that security is there. Make sure that there is some exchange of best practice between the different product teams. So that's a model that scales very well, and I encourage you to think about it, especially in organizations that are split in terms of geography or business unit, which typically happens for companies with revenue above 10 billion. Now, culture. Let's talk about the culture. And to me, culture is not a fuzzy word. It is about what happens in the field. What you do is who you are, and the culture you need to develop is paramount to your success as an API team. So as part of it, you need to make sure that what's practiced is best practice. So along the life cycle of your APIs, you need to apply best practice. And I would encourage you to read the second edition of a book by Mehdi, Eric, Ronnie, and Mike. If you haven't done so yet, just read it. It's even better than the first one. And to drive the culture, I encourage you to work on guidelines. Guidelines are the foundations of API governance, and they are those that are built by the team and not just the enablement team. It needs to be collaboration with input coming from the product teams that are as close as possible to the field, and they need to have their say into what's showing up in the guidelines. And in terms of the categories of guidelines, the major ones are security. So that's foundational. APIs were built to secure companies so that they could open to third parties. So the security guidelines are critical for all developers and all teams within your company, and need to be built and maintained with great care. One piece that drives a lot of efficiency is common objects. So, for example, if you're a bank and you will, even if you have lines of business in 40 countries, all of them will have a client as an object. They will all of them have an account. They will all of them have payment. So what you can define is common objects that is as wide as possible and vetted and used by all the API product team. API schema is no longer a topic of great discussions. It's all based on JSON, but it needs to be documented somewhere in a guideline. And same on versioning. Just make sure that everybody is treating versioning the right way and the same way with a group, a major and a minor. I think the best practice on this have been well documented. And to those four basic guidelines, I would add a fifth one, which would be design. Design guideline is very often missing. And this is what actually can make the difference between a good API and a bad API. And on this, I encourage you to read the best practice from Arnaud Loret, API on Demand, because you need to think about designing your APIs as part of a guideline. Finally, once you've created all your products, one thing that's useful is to know what you're selling. So what you're selling is what's in your catalog. And so you need a catalog of products, and those products are your APIs. This is an example of a catalog of products built on Axway Amplify. Actually, we'll have a demo of this right after my talk with David. I'll talk more about it. Then adoption. So adoption of your API is way more complex than it appears. It is not just about having some marketing people do some communication. There is an element of it, but it's just the tip of the iceberg. So to me, good adoption starts with fierce internal alignment at corporate level, where KPIs have been defined, the incentives have been aligned with the KPIs. There have been some teams created between business and developers, and some communication that started at corporate level, and some quick wins were realized early on. So that's the beginning. Then you need to focus on the product experience and build a good product based on or focused on your developer as a king. One tip here is, if you build a new API and this API replaces a service that already exists, just make it mandatory for people to use your API. You'll see that the consumption will rise dramatically from the beginning. Then third element of that can drive your adoption is to build the right partner ecosystem based on partners you've identified as gems as part of your vision. You know, the third-party APIs that you want to include in your experience and in your platform. You need to evangelize towards them and make sure everything is interoperable between those partners. And finally, only at the end, adoption can outreach to a wider audience with the usual marketing and comm stuff on social networks, some developer evangelization, because the consumers at the end are all developers, conferences like this one, and make sure you communicate with your shareholder and stakeholders on the KPIs you've achieved. The outreach is also internal for you to get a sustained budget for your effort. To monitor your success in adoption, I encourage you to think about the dashboard for it, so that you can take or have an idea of which APIs are working well, which ones need help, or maybe which ones are existing and should not be existing, which is going to be something we'll cover with David on the security section. So that's the takeaway. You think about the 6 steps of building a business, and I gave you some pointers. And as a follow-up, we'll give a live demo in a few minutes with David on the Amplify platform. Thanks a lot.
That's fantastic. Thanks, Eric. Just looking at the questions from the stage. If anyone does have a question, please please share. We've got time for a quick couple. I'll start then. I think the model is really useful for a lot of people, and so for those who are already implementing APIs, they're going to be at various stages of maturity across those 6 areas. So how do they look at how do they shift towards what they're currently doing to align better with your model? Like, because it's not quite linear either, is it? You've got to do a bit of all of the 6.
Yeah, what matters most is to be lucid about the situation you're in, as well as your goal for the next year, for the next few months. So, for example, if you're at the beginning of your journey and you're just using APIs, the first power of APIs, which is security, and you're just exposing APIs, and you want to get into bringing agility within your company, that should be your only focus. And it's really important to actually not trying to shoot for the stars, but really go step by step towards the full maturity, where you actually master the 4 powers and are building a platform based on APIs. So you shouldn't be overwhelmed with trying to do everything. You need to be analyzing your current situation versus this model and what could be a reasonable next step. And then the decision as to what additional kind of resources you need for the next step will become obvious to you after collaboration and discussions with all the stakeholders.
Right. Okay. So sort of pick out of those 6, if you're already working on stuff, pick one and focus on honing that or aligning it better with all of the best practices you've mentioned, and then move on. Okay, great.
Exactly.
Okay, fantastic. I'll invite you to leave the stage. And as Eric